the tripartite soul and the practice of the virtues, and celestial and divine ascent through a devotional practice. Hello everyone, thank you for joining me today. This is Taliesin McKnight. You know, I talk a lot in these videos about astrological magic, and we go a lot into Agrippa from the 16th century, and we examine classical magic that uses the three-world model of Agrippa, that we're reaching upward into higher realms, into the celestial realm, and beyond that into the divine, a type of reaching upward. So really what we're doing is, when we try to construct astrological talismans, or we're working with particular spirits, is we are reaching upward, or we're rather trying to call down. So this really has to do with the magician understanding different sympathies, being able to make connections with the higher realm and to bring down. So in the practice of practical magic, or thaumaturgy of practical magic, it is all about pulling down through the cosmos. So, you know, in my last Patreon video, I talked a little bit about the threefold nature of the soul in Platonic writings. And I think it's really interesting. I wanted to touch upon that today, and the practice of the virtues. Because, you know, I think it's really interesting. So we have this like astrological magic, but what about a divine ascent? Like if you read the Pime, that the planets are like rungs upon a ladder. The divine Pymander, the beginning of the Greco-Egyptian wisdom literature of the Corpus Hermeticum, it talks about how the soul of man, basically how the soul of man fell down through the planetary spheres. So like the Hermetic writings, they come from late antiquity, and they talk about, they describe, which we don't have to take too literally, although I think people did take them seriously, that the soul descended through the 7 planetary realms, and each planet stamped its essence upon us. This idea of the soul is sown into matter, and like the 7 planetary qualities are sown within us. Now, not that we have to necessarily take that literally, but we get the idea in that in our incarnations we have the gods stamped upon us. They are co-nascent. They are born within us in our very being. So that could be seen as that we all have a spiritual striving because it's stamped in our nature. That human beings by nature, perhaps, have this inward need to reach upward to the divine. Why could that be? Well, some, you know, according to the Pymander, it would say that the celestial powers have enstamped themselves upon us, and that we come from a higher realm. So the Pymander talks about a celestial ascent. You know, it talks about the liberation of the soul. We're talking about the Hermetica, the wisdom literature of the Corpus Hermeticum. It talks about how the soul incarnating into matter, how it was planetary in our ascent. You know, the 7 planets is like rungs on a ladder. We have to ascend to the lunar sphere, and so you have like this astrological map of the path of ascent. And of course, if you look at the tree of life, if you look at the Kabbalistic diagram of the tree of life, and you place the planetary spheres upon it, it is, in that sense, it could be seen as a planetary ascent also. We exist in Malkuth. We go up to Yesod, the moon, and Hod, Mercury, Netzach, Venus, Tiferet, the sun. So you could see in there also kind of our moving upwards of the Aristotelian cosmos. So, you know, that's something that's always interested me, is this idea of, you know, in practical magic, we're pulling the energies of the planets down using sympathies. But also this idea of an ascent. What if we could pull ourselves upward? And something I've been really getting interested more and more, and I've studied throughout the years here and there, but I'm really getting fascinated again, is like classical Greek philosophy, because Pythagoreanism and Platonism and Hermetism and Gnosticism, all of these things are at the roots of the Western esoteric tradition, which these types of occult streams would carry on and alongside, or it would be carried on in Christian and Muslim places in the Middle Ages and on through the Renaissance. But there's an occult stream. So, anyways, this idea of ascent through the planetary spheres, and if you look at like the three world model of Agrippa, what if not only pulling down astrological forces or pulling down the power of angels for scrying or for talismans, what if we could also ascend? So, but anyways, like Neoplatonism, which I am by no means an expert, I'm not an academic, I'm just a lay person that's very fascinated by these things. I'm very interested in Neoplatonism, because you could think of, well, how can the soul ascend upward? What is the method? Does it need to be like lodge magic where you go through these like planetary initiations? I mean, I guess it could. Could you ascend through the 7 planets spiritually through like fasting and prayer and doing like these planetary initiations? Well, there's something very interesting is like getting into Iamblichus. His view is that through devotion, okay, through prayer, through theurgy, and this is something that I'm by no means an expert in, but I'm very fascinated in. But in theurgy, which is a divine I like this idea that through devotion to the gods, through ceremonies and piety, through an emptying of oneself in prayer, that through devotional practices, that in itself could lead to henosis or union with the divine, that we could partake of the divine nature through devotion, through coming together with the gods and having a deeper relationship with them, or you could say archangels or whatever, that a devotional practice itself can be deifying and liberating. And of course you have things like bhakti yoga and stuff. So, I think it's interesting, this idea that through planetary devotion and through devotion to the archangels by praying and working with them, that this itself could be purifying and lead to enlightenment and henosis. So, something that I think is a very simple practice for someone that wants to do this, or I think even if you just want to do practical magic, it's good to be in tune with the planetary powers or archangels or however you want to see it. So even if someone's not wanting like full-on deification or whatever, theosis, maybe you just want to do a little planetary magic. I think having a closeness to the divine powers, coming into contact with their energies, being more attuned to them, like being attuned like to a musical harmony, like by being attuned to them, I think in itself could also help us with magic. One thing that I think is a very interesting practice would be, one thing that I think is an interesting practice is just to work with the planet of the day. So it's Monday, the day of the moon, or Sunday is the day of the sun. So the seven classical planets are associated with the days of the week. So Monday is the moon, Tuesday is Mars, Wednesday is Mercury, Thursday is Jupiter. So, it's a very basic practice, but burning a little incense and reciting the Orphic hymn during the planetary hour. So through that, what is that? That's outward ceremony and devotion. Burn a little incense at the planetary hour and recite the Orphic hymn. of the planet of the day. So there's a devotional practice. What about contemplative? A contemplative approach could also be added. I do them together. What would that look like? Well, look for martial or solar things that day. Watch, let's say it's Tuesday, the day of Mars. Look for just notice red around you. Notice martial things. Think about martial things, okay? As an example, during a Tuesday. And then third, trying to embody that planet a little bit. Try to attune with that part of yourself. So on Friday, day of Venus, just try to get in tune with that quality more. Or during Mercury, try to be more mercurial. So through action, through clothing, through dress, through foods, through being aware of the things around you that are solar or whatever, and then the Orphic Hymn at the planetary hour. I think just being plugged in on a daily basis. And, I like this idea that could also be deifying. In my last Patreon video, I talked about the tripartite soul, or the three levels of the soul given in Plato's Phaedrus, and the chariot allegory of the soul. And you see the charioteer, like in the chariot card, has a charioteer with the white horse and a black horse. And this charioteer and the horses, they represent the three aspects of the soul, which I talked about in my Patreon video. So the appetitive, or the part of the soul that is like material pleasure and sex and food, that is called epithumia. And then we have logos, or the logical part of the mind, and thumos, or the spirited part. We need all three aspects of the soul. So we all need that heroic quality within us. And the virtue that tames that horse is fortitude and courage. We all need to have courage and boldness. And we all need to be in touch with that spirited quality, the heroic quality, the desire to go out and conquer. That's one part of the soul. We need that quality. The other part is, the other horse is epithumia, pleasure. We have that part of the mind or consciousness that wants to eat and sleep and have sex and have good food and kind of lazy, right? So whenever we try to achieve something, Plato describes it as a charioteer trying to direct two horses. So these horses, or parts of the self, are often in conflict. A lot of times we want to achieve something great, but we can't get out of bed. Or our sensual desires could get us in trouble. And some people are too dominated by thumos. They're all about just constantly work, work, work. They never take time to themselves. And logic, or logos, is the part of the soul that governs these two horses. So to the logos part of the mind, we need wisdom, or prudence, which is proper action, knowing what to say or what to do in a situation that is prudent in that situation. And through fortitude, we could bring out the boldness of the spirited part of ourselves, our thumos, through fortitude and courage. We need to engage. We need that quality to overcome obstacles. And it's the part of the self that wants to overcome obstacles, to overcome and conquer. And the appetitive part of the soul that desires pleasures, or epithumia, that part of the soul is tamed by the practice of temperance. Temperance is moderation, okay? Temperance, knowing to temper the passions, to have the fortitude to conquer to have that conquest part of the soul, which we all need, and wisdom for the mind. And the balanced proportion of these make justice. Justice is to each his or her own. Okay, so, it's pretty interesting. There are a couple of books that I highly recommend. So Practical Theurgy by Dr. Jeffrey Kupperman is a very interesting read. What this text does, he's an academic and a scholar. So he's all into Neoplatonism and Iamblichus and stuff, and Theurgy. And he combines this academic attitude with practice, and practice of the book and the exercises ultimately is to lead to the invocation of the personal daemon, or the personal guard, the spirit that then acts as the person's guide. The personal daimon, or the personal guardian spirit. I think that's pretty interesting. This idea that we all have a guardian spirit that can help us. I think that's very important, And anyways, this book is really interesting. It's called Practical Theurgy by Jeffrey Kupperman. Practical Theurgy, like following the principles that I haven't done it yet, but I'm starting to work through it. I'm very interested. It's a book that it culminates with the invocation of the personal daimon, or personal spirit. I like this idea that we all have like a spirit that can then be our teacher and guide. So once establishing this connection, you have a guide, someone that will guide you in life and in the course of life and in our spiritual aspiration. So I think that's pretty interesting. There are astrological methods to learn like the angel of your nativity that governs your birth chart and like what you need in this life and everything. And then you have some of these Neoplatonic writings, which are Greek pagan material, talking about like the personal daimon or guardian spirit. And then, I don't know, I think it's all really interesting, I think that I would like, I've just been really obsessed lately. It's just constant like dialogues and Platonic dialogues. I just, obviously it's not my first time. I'm not an academic. I'm not some expert on Plato, but it's not my first time, but I'm getting really obsessed with the topic again, and the Pythagorean source book has like a collection of all these Pythagorean writings written in late antiquity. So I just think that's always good to not just read, what modern people write about something, but to go to the classical materials themselves. But this idea that through devotional practice, through prayer, that itself can be deifying. And if we already have an astrological magic, we could reach upward through the stars. We're not just pulling down, we're also bringing ourselves up to become more divine, more godlike in a way. And, it's all very fascinating, and kind of this idea with Marsilio Ficino and his Platonic Academy. So, anyways, that's just a quick video for y'all. But this idea that prayer and devotion could itself be deifying in a sense. And, using Agrippa's three-world model, offering planetary things to the planetary powers with the recitation of an Orphic hymn at the planetary hour, the deity or spirit or archangel of the day. So just a daily devotional practice, I think is really, really interesting. And maybe not entirely at first, but by degrees, we're gradually raising ourselves up. And maybe not just raising ourselves up, but calling down divine power, making our lives a vessel for the divine power. And that not only are we bringing ourselves up, but we make our own lives more divine with harmony and proportion and beauty and bringing in goodness into our lives, bringing the blessings of the beneficent deities and of the angels. So, but anyways, that's just a quick video for y'all today. And thank you for joining me, and I will see y'all in the next video. All right. So what do y'all think on this topic? I think it's pretty cool. We're going to go deeper, y'all. All right, y'all. I will see y'all in the next video. All right. Have a great day, y'all.